I'm Matt Kadnar from the Nebo Wealth Team. Quick little fun fact as we get going. 42 years ago this week, Cheers debuted on NBC TV. So Cheers was one of my favorite sitcoms, being a child of the 80s. So it brought back a lot of nostalgia, also quite depressing because it was 42 years ago. So that says something right there. So I wanted to name this episode after one of my favorite characters for Cheers, the lovable barfly, Norm Peterson. So Norm was an accountant, spent a lot of time at the bar. And so this is based off a case I did with a Nebo advisor last week. And so I want to run you through Norm's situation. So Norm is 62 years old. He wants to retire next year, can't stand being an accountant anymore. We have longevity of 95, which might be a little bit optimistic given how much beer and how little physical activity Norm performed. And then we're going to run this without any constraints in the portfolio. And that's important because we generally recommend the first crack go through it without constraints. It allows you to see what the perfect fit portfolio is, as well as understanding the potential tension between long-term wealth accumulation goals and short-term drawdown. So we're going to walk through our investment policy process. We just talked about time horizon risk tolerance, and then we'll go to cash flows. So here we're going to use Nebo's simple cash flow model. We also have enhanced. We also can import cash flows from eMoney, Money Guide, Right Capital. So Norm's saving about $20,000 a year. He plans on withdrawing $90,000 a year with retirement, and those are Norm's cash flow needs. So we can take that and we can now go to our target return. And so in order to, the minimum return necessary for Norm to achieve his goals is 4.5% after taxes, fees, and inflation. So if Norm wants to die with zero, what he needs from his assets is 4.5% real, which doesn't sound too bad, but when you layer in an inflation assumption, say 2.5%, now you're up to 7. You have a fee, say at 1%, now you're up to 8, and that's not even taking into account any taxes. So that's a pretty high return. And so what we plot here is our wealth target. So that's the 4.5% real return, given and combined with Norm's cash flows and dying with zero. And so what Nebo's job is to keep Norm out of the red zone, to build a portfolio to maximize the likelihood that Norm achieves his goals. And so if Norm does in fact want to die with zero, we can click the view allocation button and we can build the perfect fit portfolio today to maximize the likelihood that Norm achieves his goals. 54% in stocks, 20% in liquid alts, and 26% in bonds. And these are based on Nebo Wealth's capital market assumptions. Nebo Wealth, of course, is open architecture. So if Norm is content with this, one of the things that our Nebo advisor can do is go to our viability testing. And so our viability testing, what we're going to do is build a glide path that is personalized for Norm. It is dynamic and it is personalized based on Norm's unique needs and circumstances. And so we can take that glide path and then we can run our next generation Monte Carlo simulations on that in order to assess the viability of that plan. And so we can look at long-term statistics and balance that off against short-term statistics. So here we have the probability of success at the top, 53%. Oof, that's a bit tight. Median wealth, $121,000. We can look at wealth at the 75th and 5th percentile. We balance that off against first-year drawdown of $255,000, fifth percentile drawdown versus first percentile drawdown of $348,000. We plot the probability of success over here, where you can see that probability of success really starts to fall in the 70s. And then this is our wealth chart. The black line is our target wealth based on the cash flows and our target return of 4.5% real. The dark blue line is the median of our Monte Carlo simulations, and the light blue line are the top and bottom quartile. You can see that dark blue line stays right basically on top, a little bit on top of that target. So there's not a whole lot of room for error there. And that's probably given our Nebo advisor a little bit of agita, and probably should give Norm a little bit of agita too. So we have a whole suite of viability simulations, scenario analysis that we can do. We can change the withdrawal rate, we can change the savings rate. But what I wanted to do here is show the retirement simulation. So we can change Norm's retirement date. So if we can, the advisor said, Norm, you're going to cut it a little close. Let's look at what happens if we delay retirement for a year or 2 years. So we have another year or two of savings, and then we're delaying eating into that corpus by a couple of years. And that we know through compounding that can make a pretty big difference. So here we will plot the different retirement ages, the median wealth, and then the probability of success. And so indeed, as if Norm were to delay his retirement by a couple of years, you can see that probability of success really starts to dramatically improve. And so this is one of the different tools that we have to give the advisor the best data we can to help Norm make the decision of what the right path, or what the right plan, what the right return for his retirement is.